If you ever feel dumb, just remember, at least you didn't get killed by a turtle. Throughout history, people have died. In wars, in accidents, and in tragedies. But then there are the ones who died in ways so unbelievably stupid, it's hard to believe they were real. These are not myths. These are actual people who made decisions so catastrophically dumb, they secured their spot in history, not for how they lived, but for how they died. Let's begin with Aeschylus. The guy basically invented Greek tragedy, one of the most influential playwrights of the ancient world. And yet, his own death was a tragic joke. See, Aeschylus was bald, and one day he was out walking when an eagle flew overhead, holding a turtle. Eagles sometimes drop turtles onto rocks to crack their shells. So this bird looks down and sees a shiny, round, dome-shaped object reflecting the sun. It mistakes Aeschylus's bald head for a rock and drops the turtle. It hits him right on the skull. He dies instantly. Death by turtle. Technically, assisted bird murder. You spend your whole life writing about death and fate, and then get sniped by wildlife. Centuries later, we got Hans Steininger from the 1500s in Austria, known across Europe for having the world's longest beard, over 1.4 meters. It was so long, he had to roll it up and tuck it into a pouch, basically the Renaissance version of a beard net. One day, a fire breaks out in his town. Chaos, screaming, people running. Hans bolts out to help, but in the panic, he forgets to tie up the beard. It unravels, wraps around his feet like a medieval booby trap. He trips on his own facial hair, tumbles down a flight of stone steps, cracks his neck, and dies instantly. He was literally killed by his own fashion statement. A man undone by his own beard. His legacy? A marble statue in his hometown, with the beard carved out in full, glorious detail, immortalized by the very thing that ended him. But if you thought that was stupid, wait until you hear about the guy who got crushed by a cow. No, really. Somewhere in the remote countryside of Queensland, Australia, a man decided to set up camp for the night. Nothing unusual. Just a quiet spot, a peaceful evening, a tent pitched on the edge of a hill. What he didn't know was that just a few meters above him, on that same slope, stood a grazing cow. Now, cows aren't exactly known for their agility or balance, and apparently this one had neither. In the middle of the night, the cow lost its footing, slipped, and fell down the hill, right onto the tent, and directly onto the man sleeping inside. He was crushed to death by a falling cow. No charge, no motive, just gravity and beef. That's not just a stupid way to die. It's something your ancestors would literally not believe if you told them. I survived every predator, every disease, every war, just so my great-great-grandson could get flattened by a grazing mammal in his sleep? Nature has no mercy, or sense of humor. But sometimes it feels like it does. And speaking of people who should have backed off, let's talk about Gary Hoy, a corporate lawyer in Toronto with a very dumb party trick. He used to show off how strong the office windows were by sprinting at them full speed and slamming his body into the glass. He'd done it before. It always worked. The glass never broke. Until one day, he did it again, in front of a group of visiting students. The glass didn't shatter, but the entire window frame popped loose. Gary flew through it, from the 24th floor, and plummeted to his death. The worst part? He proved his point. The glass was unbreakable. It was everything else that failed. But Gary wasn't the only lawyer who died trying to prove something. Clement Vallandigham takes things to a whole new level of courtroom stupidity. It's 1871. Clement is defending a man accused of murder. His argument? The victim accidentally shot himself while drawing his pistol. To demonstrate that theory, Clement reenacts the scene in front of the jury with a real loaded gun. And in true what could possibly go wrong fashion, he pulls the trigger, shoots himself in the stomach, dies. But, and I cannot stress this enough, he was right. The demonstration worked. The client was declared innocent. Case closed, lawyer included. But Vallandigham wasn't the only one whose confidence got him killed. Just a few years earlier, during the American Civil War, Union General John Sedgwick stood calmly on the battlefield, while his men ducked and scrambled for cover. They warned him about Confederate sharpshooters positioned in the trees nearby, men known for being deadly accurate. But Sedgwick wasn't having it. With a casual smile, he stood tall, hands behind his back, and scoffed at the idea of danger. He told his troops not to be ridiculous, that the enemy was too far away, and that no sharpshooter could possibly hit anything from that distance. Then, almost immediately after the words left his mouth, and I mean seconds later, a single bullet struck him directly in the head. He dropped instantly, killed on the spot. His last words, forever immortalized, were, "They couldn't hit an elephant at this distance." Turns out they didn't need to hit an elephant, just one overly confident general standing in the open. And finally, the man, the myth, the whiskey. Jack Daniel. You know the name, but you probably don't know how he died. One morning, Jack went to open his safe and forgot the combination. So, naturally, he kicked it hard, broke his toe. The toe got infected. The infection spread. Over time, it reached his bloodstream and eventually killed him. The founder of one of the most iconic whiskey brands on Earth, taken out by a locked box. Not alcohol, not a bar brawl, just a piece of stubborn furniture and even more stubborn pride. So yeah, people have died for glory, for country, for love, but these guys, they died of pure stupidity. A turtle to the skull, a beard to the stairs, a falling cow, a window with too much confidence, a courtroom stunt with live ammo, and a toe versus a safe. They didn't just die. Some of them earned it. So next time you feel like doing something reckless, ask yourself, would this get me into a list like this? And if the answer is even remotely maybe, take a breath, walk away. And whatever you do, don't kick the safe.